Hi everyone. Thanks for coming to the DDD event and for everyone who organized this very nice event. We are going to be the last panel before lunch, so don't worry, we're going to finish it on time. Thank you very much everyone who came to the panel. Let's start with a short introduction. I'm Erez Kiki, co-founder and CEO of Tuki Network. We developed a very interesting protocol, a second layer on top of Ethereum. And with that, we developed a product for multi-step tracking and solution for referrals for SMBs and SMEs. Flora from Binance.
Hello. Everyone. Hello. Hi everyone. My name is Flora and I'm from Binance X. We're a new initiative at Binance. We are external and developer facing. We do two things. One is to help support the growth of the blockchain ecosystem. Binance has 400 pairs, and by default, we are partnered with every project out there. And number two, we also in charge of fostering innovation on top of Binance platform, which includes a Binance chain that has a DEX built in it, and also Binance.com API, which is a lot of trading functionalities. Also trust the open source wallet and Binance Charity. We have a team that's trying to solve the donation transparency for using blockchain. And we also run a Binance X fellowship program where we are getting researchers and open source developers to build a crypto common that we hope developers around the world with any kind of technical ability be able to build on top of the blockchain. Thanks.
Thank you, Flora. Dimitry from Ocean Protocol.
Hi everyone, I'm Dimi. I'm heading product and research at Ocean Protocol. It's basically a decentralized data exchange. I think on a daily basis we try to be not maximalist, and we try to do something we call Web 2.5, basically allow people that are running services in data science to be on-ramped into the tokenized space. So we're looking at governance, liquidity, typical things like bonding curves, ownership of data, etc. It's quite exciting. So.
Thanks very much. By the way, I forgot to ask, where did you came from? From the West Coast, right? You came to Tel Aviv? And you came from?
I came from Berlin.
Berlin, nice. Or Perelman from Chromia.
Hi, thank you very much. So I'm one of the co-founders of Comaway and Chromia, one of the oldest blockchain companies in the space. Back in 2014, we formalized the official company. We worked together since 2012, part of the Color Coins project that we co-founded. And yeah, what we do now, basically, we are a layer 1 protocol that combined relational databases with blockchains. With the focus of user friendliness for the developer.
Thank you. And last, Tom from Portis.
Hey everyone, my name is Tom. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Portis. Our goal is to make Dapps more accessible to mainstream users and not as intimidating and complicated. So we give developers an SDK and their users get an embedded wallet inside the application, but we use end-to-end encryption, so we're non-custodial and users maintain absolute control over their private keys. But on the other hand, get a very familiar experience of an email and password login and a lot of other features that make their whole user flow, friendly and not as intimidating. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. So we have a representative here from all aspects of blockchain, from exchange, protocol, blockchain, and also we have the first women to attend in a panel today, which is exciting. Yeah. Let's start with the first question for us. I want to build a Dapp, I want to build a DeFi. There are so many blockchains out there. How do I choose the right blockchain for me? Do you have any idea where should I start with?
I was just at ETH Boston, and I would just go to hackathons and find the biggest prize. But really, I think there are three things we can consider as a new developer. First of all, the blockchain has really good developer tools that would make my work very productive, and whether there's an ecosystem so people can collaborate. and also whether the blockchain foundation has support for the users.
I would resonate a bit. I think it's all about having like a big community and a lot of applications running. You see this, for example, I'm pretty happy with Ethereum. I think a lot of people might disagree here or go with it. But the cool thing that you have there, you have a network, and then you see all these applications that basically give you like this huge API. And if you build contracts, you build on top of other contracts. It's super modular. And yeah, documentation, all these tools that are around it are of utmost critical importance. I remember in 2013 we were building on top of Bitcoin, and it was a bit more painful, right? I haven't followed that space for a while on the developer side of things, so I'm assuming these guys also have like a very solid tool chain around it. But if you really want to experiment and go with it, you want to have something that goes quick. And if it goes quick, that means that you have a big community supporting this.
Okay, thanks. And I would add, as a CEO, I want to add another point, is you need to follow the money. Eventually, if there is a blockchain that gives you funding, or you find funding to support a certain blockchain, that's another parameter to take. So we have, I think, few hundred Dapps and Dapps on the market today, but the adoption is not that good yet. Can you raise your hands, anyone who ever used Dapp at least once? Okay, so about half of us. But eventually, when we do use applications, most of the applications we use are Web 2 applications. How do we overcome this adoption problem? How do we reach not 5 million people, but 500 million people? Maybe Thomas, you have a live product. Maybe you, okay, or start with you.
Yeah. So basically what we also identified, we also have a live product, but what we identified as well that UI UX is also a very crucial part of why people are not actually playing or crypto games or using crypto dApps because it's so much complex, especially on the on-ramp when you onboard new users. So for example, when I used to play crypto game, I'm not a dumb person, it's very, the wallets are very complex right now. So but it's true. I had to sign in each transaction, for example. Loading a card, a pack of cards took me 4 or 5 hours in addition. So it was very, very slow, painful, and the whole over UI UX experience wasn't that good. So I think that's also one of the key reasons to actually bring new users that don't know crypto at all.
Thanks, Or.
Yeah, so Or is right in the sense that the user experience is pretty terrible. It's too hard, and users are, they're, lack of a better word, they're lazy. They don't want to work hard, and for good reason. They don't really care about the blockchain. They care about the value that it provides them. So we believe almost everything can be abstracted away for the user and make it a Web 2 experience, except for the key custodianship. That's something we feel you don't really want to take a shortcut. You still want to have the users in control. Otherwise, it's just Web 2 with some extra steps. And the way we solve that is, for instance, the fiat on-ramping. So we integrated with third parties, and we have a direct purchase flow for our users. So we don't tell them, go to your wallet, load it up. Once it's in there, wait until, go check. And then once it's there, come back to us and sign a transaction. We just make that simple for him, and he just can continue with his credit card and just complete the flow. Or for instance, signing transactions. So we allow the user to say, look, I trust this application. As long as I'm not paying too much gas or paying for something, just confirm it. Give me a notification that it happened. So we're trying to bring the experience as close as possible to Web 2 without compromising security or custodianship or anything like that.
So better UX, better UI, better ramps for people. What else?
Less intimidating for the user.
Yeah, less intimidating.
Yeah, I think developer has to sort of go back to the fundamentals, and user really just want cheaper, easier, faster things. And now privacy becomes a concern. But I think going back to the fundamentals, developer really think that we are building this not just explanatory things on blockchain, but also just what do they need.
Maybe just a few tips here, like the things that we found useful. You can simply go to commons.oceanprotocol.com to play with our application, and you probably will be able to use it on your phone without having crypto wallet, etc. So what we're using there is a few, I think, interesting tricks like burner wallets, because we're talking about short transactions that are on your hot wallet. They don't have to be in your cold storage, so you can always bridge between those. We're running a POA network for some of the high volume stuff, a bit like state channels, so the delay and the latency for the end user is way less. You don't have to click through MetaMask because you're using a burner wallet. You can have things like meta transactions where you don't have to pay for gas fees, but actually the application owner is paying for the gas fees. Other stuff we did in the past, for example, we had an app called Ascribe, which had 5,000 monthly active users on the Bitcoin network in 2014. I think that's something that was already substantial. Yeah. And the key there was actually custodianship of wallets as well. So
okay,
you
so
can play with a lot.
Speed is another very big parameter, and less steps, which is of course another UX. And I want to emphasize another one. Value, money. If we give them better prices, if the transactions are cheaper, if the products gives value for the users in the money perspective, they will come. So, like you've noticed, the topic of this panel is about really how to reach mass adoption in crypto, and especially on Dapps and DeFis. And what is so unique about Dapps and DeFis is that they are decentralized. Dapp is a decentralized application. Do we really need decentralization? Maybe decentralization is overhyped. Maybe first we should bring the users and only later bring this decentralization? What do you think?
And that'll also be a kind of a problem for Tuki, I think. We don't need decentralization, but no, I think that users don't care about decentralization. That's true, and I give the example sometimes of like when a user uses Netflix, they care about being able to click a button and see friends. They don't care about the encryption algorithm of how it gets fast to their box. And what they care about is the value. And blockchain and decentralization does offer value. If it's the interoperability between no more walled gardens, you know, everybody can talk to everybody. If it's the immutability and a lot of other stuff like being able to move value for fast and cheap without asking permission from any centralized authority. Those are all values that people can appreciate if you wrap it up nicely and just give them the value, you know. Uber offers a great service, but it's an amazing application, super easy to use. You start using it in a few seconds, and that's what we need for people to.
True. Also, I think, you know, we are sitting here in Tel Aviv. Israel is a modern country with good democracy. And most of the people here are coming from Western countries. But if you speak with people from maybe West Africa or some other third world countries, they will tell you decentralization is very important. Because governments, they shut services down, they stop transactions, they're doing a lot of bad things that we need to overcome it. That's why it's important. One very big player that came to our world in the last year is stablecoins. I think stablecoins can take Dapps and DeFis to the next step. It will help onboard many people. What do you think about it? Maybe, or you have an opinion?
Well, stablecoins are a good concept, but I mean, I think the pure main use case for crypto now is speculation, and that will derive many people from using crypto in general. And right now there are not a lot of users as well for Dapps in general, so we don't know either stablecoin is needed or not. That's my own take.
Binance just announced lately about some stablecoins. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I think we just have to try different ways in our ecosystem right now. There are, for example, like fiat, right? Some people say that stay as much as away from it. And some people think it's a Trojan horse that get us users. So I guess we have to sort of find different ways to advance.
Thanks.
Another thing, I think stablecoins are at most important to activate the utility side of things because people are not there to speculate on the utility side. Think about taking a plane from here to Hawaii and because of speculation, halfway your gas tank is empty and you crash, right? That's something you don't want to have. If you want to activate the computation, you also want it to be, well, finish with the expectation of the fees you're going to pay. So if you have whatever kind of bill of token or bill of coins you can, to use in a system, you're not looking at a speculative side of things if you're talking about DApps. You're really talking about creating a network of utilities, albeit like storage, bandwidth, compute, privacy, identity. There's a lot of utility side to the decentralization part of things, and they're of human criticality to come into hands of the people rather than being controlled by governments or big companies. So stablecoins target the utility side of things, and that's maybe less sexy, but
at least until we have Ethereum or blockchain stable, maybe in a couple of years from now,
Well,
and the fiat one won't be so stable. Who
You
knows?
do have some blockchains where, like XDAI, for instance, that is on POA network, and it offers a stable coin as the native currency. And I agree with Dimi, this is great for the UX part, we want to place as few mental barriers as we can on the user. We don't want to educate them almost on anything, again, except the custodianship, but everything else should be simple. And that's also stuff like gas relay and abstracting it, but also, and not explaining network fees, but if we're talking about a stable coin, then users understand when something costs $10. And a lot of the problems that we see in blockchain sometimes in terms of mainstream adoption is because projects go fully decentralized right from the start, and you need those couple of bridges. For instance, yeah, this is $10. I understand as a user what $10 is. I still don't understand 10 magic internet money things that now can buy me an iPhone and tomorrow can't buy me a sandwich. Like, I don't understand why that's happening.
Yeah, also if I owe you $10, I want it to worth $10 also tomorrow, and not worth 12 or 8. Yeah, it's very important. In direction with stablecoins, what about on-ramp, off-ramp from fiat? This is like a huge issue, a huge problem in our world. And if we will solve it, I believe this will bring mass, but really mass adoption to DeFis. Maybe Flora can tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, just like I said, I think we need to really go for our approaches. We're still very early and we're experimenting. And the problem right now is we don't have a lot of users. And so it's kind of an experiment we have to really try always. Yeah.
How do you solve the on-ramp, off-ramp for fiat in Binance? Can you tell us?
Actually, I'm not supposed to talk about the exchange side of the business. Yeah, mostly on developer.
Well, we're all here to print our own money, right? No. But you do want to create engagement with the user. So for a lot of these apps, I think you can get rid of, you don't really have to have a fiat on-ramp. You want to have them like, you want to create an incentive within your application to create user engagement. That's what I think bigger companies do it when they have traction of their users. They really like know how to tie in their time and to create a constant engagement. If you do that by minting tokens within the system that can be used within the system, then you kind of can go from the inside to the outside. So you can do a crypto out-ramp rather than a fiat on-ramp.
On the panel before us, there was Nimrod, the CEO of Simplex. They have a really good on-ramp solution for fiat, and now they are working on also off-ramp. So you can also deposit from crypto to credit cards. I really hope it will work. Or you wanted to add something about it?
Yeah, I wanted to just share that, yeah, you have good tools to buy credit card now, crypto with credit cards now, which can help. Still some huge fees, but it still can help to the end user as well to onboard to the starting point. So yeah, buying crypto with credit card is very, very efficiently.
As long as the user experience is good and the KYC is not that bad, but yes. So we have many DeFis and many Dapps out there, but still I believe only few specific verticals succeed to take some of the market, like casinos, gambling, loans, and also interest platform like Celsius. What do you think would be the best vertical for Dapps in the next year to succeed?
I think one of the things that kind of combines a lot of the capabilities we're seeing, if it's gambling, if it's the NFTs, if it's also stuff dealing with finance, then gaming. I think we're going to see a big surge, because also the people who are into that marketplace, they're usually more technical. They're willing to bridge some gaps here and there. And we're going to see some interesting things because of stuff like true ownership over your assets and the interoperability, the fact that you can take a skin from one game and start trading it on another game or even using it there. For instance, one of the games using Portis has a feature where you can take one of your crypto kitties and kind of make it into like a dragon on their game, because it's more about
Very
dragons
cool.
and stuff. So it's interesting just to see. And right now it's more fun than it is something that can change the world, but that's how we explore those
So
things.
not changing the world, more fun, gamification. What else?
No, it's the way to change. It's
Yeah.
it's part of that way.
To add to that, I think, well, you have, of course, gambling, you have gaming and porn. Those are the three drivers of the internet. But then there is a fourth one that I think is very interesting and pulled me into the space initially, and that's the arts side of the
The what?
arts. So a lot of digital arts basically become a new type of commodity that can be collateralized, can be used in a more liquid system than you have your physical arts. And have a look at these things like decentralized art space, where there are a lot of creators taking their intellectual property, put it maybe in an NFT, make it through a bonding curve more liquid. So this is all kind of Dapps speak, but anyways, it allows creators to coalesce around a space, to decentralize the governance around this, to decentralize the creation and the consumption of arts. And I think that's a very interesting space to look at.
But do you think also not only digital art, also real art can be tokenized?
Yeah, but then you have to put it in a special purpose vehicle, and then you can tokenize that. So once you can put stuff into vehicles that are financially custodianships, then you can do it. Otherwise, it's a bit hard. Like, there's cool stuff happening around, for example, people thinking about self-sovereign nature and buying land and then decentralizing the ownership of the land. Again, you're going to end up to have a custodianship somewhere. So you can do it, it's a bit more tricky.
Yeah, the link to physical items is something that's already happening. But before we start moving estates around with NFTs, we're gonna start smaller. And for instance, in ETH Denver last year, in February, Portis ran the swag store there, so people could buy an NFT and then exchange it for actual swag. In addition to kind of trying out this whole way of doing stuff, one of the things on the swag store was a signed book by Andres Antonopoulos. And when someone bought that signed book, they also had the NFT to prove that they bought it themselves at the conference. And if they sell it later on eBay, they can show that they also have the NFT and transfer it as well. And that adds something to it. It's like a certificate that you always have, and people really like that.
We at Tuki, we developed a very nice product to do donation campaigns. And on those donation campaigns, we are creating a unique token per campaign, and we are giving them based on one fiat currency equal one token. So those tokens are, we call them participation tokens. They don't have any value, but it's like a receipt, it's like an invoice. It's always on the blockchain, and it shows that you participated in this campaign. I hope people will use this well. Flora, you want to add something about what do you think will be the, yeah?
Sure, I think echo to what being talked about. I think collectible might be interesting because, I mean, if I get this Pokemon cards, how do I really know it's really 1,000 out there? It could be like, they might be printing more. In general, I think we are open-minded. That's why we have this Binance X Fellowship program, who will build these building blocks and hoping that the use case might come from somewhere like Africa, like places not typical where the startup that comes from.
Thanks. So I think any DApp, any DeFi it also has to have some relations with exchanges. Eventually, if you have a tokens as part of your product, you need them to be traded or at least to have some kind of relations. Do you find it easy to manage and to work with exchanges? And what do you think, what would you prefer, like decentralized exchanges or go to decentralized exchanges?
Follow the money and the users, of course, right? If like that's what you ideally want. You want to basically create applications that are brought to the end user by a supply chain network. And I think both decentralized exchanges, but especially centralized exchanges or the regular ones are utmost critical there, because they can give a normal user, a non-Web3 savvy user, they can give them a glimpse into what's happening in the space behind it, besides just the speculation side of things. So I'm very happy to work with exchanges in that sense, saying that, hey, you gave them one cookie, now give them the full cake afterwards.
That's true.
I think exchange provides liquidity. For example, Binance Dapps, we have about 139 tokens that are issued on Binance chain already, and we have about like almost 100 pairs. I think that really, the liquidity really attracts the projects. And one thing we're doing on Binance chain is this proposal called BAP3. We actually, it's an atomic swap where the application builders can actually build things on, for example, Ethereum, and have the token liquidity on Binance chain. So we're sort of going in that effort to try to see many steps we can take to work with more projects. And, and also in terms of the centralized versus decentralized application, I actually agree with him that I think their users want different things, right? So for centralized exchange, it's a lot more friendly and a lot faster. And decentralized exchange, there are people who care about privacy, and also there are potentially more tokens on the decentralized exchange.
We know what Vitalik is thinking about decentralized exchanges. Yes, Tom?
From our perspective, we're integrated with a couple of decentralized exchanges that are using Portis, and we want to offer the users the ability to do that. But I think, doing those exchanges and speculating on coins, that's something interesting. But I feel like the more interesting part is using those exchanges to offer users the ability to on-ramp to a specific token. So we have Ether, and I think on-ramping people to Ether is pretty simple now, but on-ramping them directly to tokens, that's kind of a problem, because there's also the changing rate of the token. So someone has to assume that risk, and that's kind of a challenge on how you do that, and maybe you can even create a marketplace for that. But if the token isn't big enough, then it's hard to make a marketplace for it. But from our perspective, I want to be able to offer a user, when they go to an application and he needs 3 banana tokens or something for whatever, he just knows that he's paying straight with his debit card or credit card $5, and that's all he knows. He doesn't really care about the tokens. If those tokens are important for the token economy in that application, great. We need the liquidity and make it work well so the users can be oblivious to it.
I agree with that. I think also eventually a good product will let users to onboard with whatever token they like and to go out with whatever token they like. They don't even have to know what is the token that runs this platform. This is just a tool. Like I'm going to any other service that works on AWS, I don't know how much they pay them or how it works.
I think that's going to be a very nice way of thinking about how it's going to be. So you're not using a service, you're doing a service, you're getting compensated, and again, like 5 pizza tokens or whatever, then you go to another service where you want to use those tokens for something else. It just becomes transparent. You just know that you can use those tokens, but you don't maybe even aware of them. You just know you did some work there, you could get compensating on that application and just make everything simple behind the scenes for me. I don't want to care about exchange rates and gas fees.
True. Now a personal question. All of us here are founders or we're working on decentralized applications and DeFis. What is the passion that you have in you to build such a thing? Why choosing decentralized dev application? Are you following the money, the adoption? Are you seeing the future of humanity around this? Or you just love Bitcoin and never stopped exploring it since?
Well, if you, this is a new technology, and I'm a technologist, and I also like to see this, how it plays out in the application space, and I think that's where the nonlinear things happen. If you find new means to create value, if you create, basically you could call it programming with power, right? So suddenly you have real, it's a bit of a natural evolution if you look at PC, Web 2, mobile, and now you have one step extra, which is you can program with real world physical collateral, albeit time, work, resources spent in the system. You have to prove them. There's Sybil resistance, hopefully. And that just opens up such a mind-blowing space. For example, if you go to things like Eat Berlin 2 or Dry next year, you see all these applications being created that you couldn't have imagined, but they're gorgeous. And that's something we should just all celebrate.
Exactly, exactly.
I just think that's a very multi-dimensional industry. I went to a lot of colleges and talked to the graduates there, and I think that this is so attractive. When I go to conferences like this, I mean, I cannot predict what my next conversation will be, and I think engineers are there to solve problems, and then this is a very attractive field for the engineers. And also in terms of decentralization, I think it's almost a challenge for our generation if we can somehow get it right. Different means to get there. If we somehow get it right, we have a good answer to our next generations.
That's true, and it's really everything about crypto and blockchain is about communities. Even this summit, for example, it wasn't really organized by some entity. It was organized by the local community here, by a bunch of people just said, okay, let's have a summit on Blockchain Week, and everyone did something, and eventually it came out to life. Okay, another question for you guys, smart contracts. There is a big promise around smart contracts, but people almost don't use them yet. What do you think will be the first really big killer for adoption on smart contracts? What would be the first smart contract that will disrupt its market?
I think if you find it, please let me know. We haven't found that, and we're looking forward to see it. Exchange is one use case, fundraising is, but we're looking for more sort of everyday consumer use case.
What I see getting a lot of traction is anything related to automated market making, where basically the price setting is done by setting an invariant in the system. That could be a bonding curve, could be a decentralized exchange equation. It really gives the ability for people to create liquidity in a system that they couldn't have done before.
And that from a smart contract.
That comes from smart contracts, right?
Amazing.
Those rules you have to put in. And then, of course, we're neglecting the DAO stuff that's emerging. There are so many, that gives you tissue in the community as well, for example, saying that, hey, I have an opinion here, I want to cast my opinion by using tokens and votes in this governance system. So, again, that's super nonlinear because we used to do governance through the legal system, now we can do it in the digital system. And think about the things that can emerge there. Everybody can participate.
Actually, I pretty agree with you. This is really a killer feature I wasn't aware of. I would like to see that. Tom?
Yeah, what's going to be the killer Dapp? That's a hard question. It could also be something that right now we're building the infrastructure, and there's going to be something coming up in the world in the next year or two, maybe the next market crash, maybe something political, and suddenly blockchain is here for the rescue, so it's kind of hard to predict. But I agree with Dimi. I think that charity is going to be, we're starting to see stuff in the sense of the bonded curves and a lot of interesting concepts that you couldn't really do in a centralized fashion, not in the same sense that you completely trust that everything is transparent, the money is going where it's supposed to, and the people who are, placing their faith in this charity, venture, whatever, they will get compensated more as it moves along, so it creates this kind of self-feedback kind of loop that helps it grow, and those are the kind of things that you could have tried to create in a centralized fashion, but there's a big problem of trust, especially when you're talking about charity, because charity, there's a lot of trust that your money will go to the right places.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that new kind of also economies within games that can be it can be nice experiments where you can put in smart contracts with, as my colleague said here. For example, you can shift economics from one world to another. That can be a very interesting kind of experiments that we can do.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, 2 last questions for you guys before we run out of time. Where do you see the DeFi Dapps adoption in 2 years from now? 2 years, if I go 2 years back to the end of 2017, we were all very busy on selling tokens and white papers. Now we need to bring the players. We need to bring adoption. How do you think the market going to look like in 2021? Tom.
You're starting with me. Okay, fine. We're building this critical mass of infrastructure. Stuff like, for instance, DAI, a stable coin, removes that problem of user experience. We're having a lot of different tools and libraries, things that are solving user experience and scalability, and sidechains, which we haven't really discussed a lot here, but they're also a huge, they've progressed a lot in the past 2 years, and they offer a lot of solution to user experience. And my hope, my belief, my vision is that 2 years from now, we're gonna be starting to see more and more mainstream applications actually taking hold, because we have this perfect storm, critical mass of solutions that allow that. We may have already seen the killer DApp 2 years ago. Someone came up with the idea, but he just had so many other blocks he had to build himself. I don't know. That's the point. It's like he never got out of he never left the gate, because he had to build his own user-friendly wallet, his own stablecoin, his own liquidity solutions, his own sidechains. He can't do all of that himself. And when you're building Web 2 applications, you have all of those solutions. Nobody can build a Web 2 application today that can compete, and if he has to build everything from scratch. So I hope we get to that point in 2 years.
Or?
Yeah, I agree. When I talk to different apps, they always tell me that they spend 75% of their time on building and research and tooling. And they cannot focus on their own what they want to build because of that reason. So it also takes a lot of their funding because they spend a lot of time on research and tooling and all of that stuff, instead of focusing on delivering their concept of what they want to build. So yeah, I hope that we will solve that by then.
Thanks. Dimitry?
In 2 years, we will have Libra and all our assets.
We don't know yet.
Well, something in the likes. Everything will be in one place and all our worries are gone. No. But that could be a thing, right? Where you say, well, these are the new types of on-ramps that actually start with current social identities and gradually move in self-sovereign identities that turns into wallets and then into assets. So getting that full supply chain to the end user going, I think I see a lot of progress there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do investment and have fellowship programs, and we all ask them to find the product market fit. I think UI is important, but not sufficient. I think if you have a killer app, people will go through hoops to get to use them. Yeah, so, but we do see a flight to quality. There are more better projects out there, and people are solving some of the problems.
I personally believe that in 2 years' time, we will see a killer feature, some depth that comes, and people will use it, and it will reach market share much faster than any Web 2 application ever in its history, because it's going to be global from day one. Okay, we run out of time, but we cannot finish a good panel without some speculative question. We want to ask you about the Bitcoin price. I see a big correlation about Bitcoin dominance to the successful of dApps and DeFis. Right now, Bitcoin market share is around 70%, climbed from the lows of 35% of last year. What do you think is going to be in 2 years' time? Just throw a number, it's okay.
What is going to be the Bitcoin dominance?
Yes.
I feel it will probably be around the same.
Okay. Or?
Well, Bitcoin will be number one. Yeah, I mean, it will be.
Dimitry?
I agree. I think Bitcoin has such a good brand and proven track record that it will be the number one. However, I see the most activity currently in the space happening in the Ethereum space. It has the applications, right?
So it will stay number 2.
It will stay number 2, and it will close in very nearly.
Flora, you want to say something about it?
Yeah, again, that cannot comment on this.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we all agree Bitcoin is going to stay number 1. Thank you very much for participating in the panel. Thank you, Tom, Dimitri, and Flora. I'm Erez.